Okay, and so, but Wayne. Wayne has spoken here before, as you know, and so a little bit back about him again. He was born and grew up in Toronto. Odd, unusual situation, I think. He trained as a mechanical engineer. Following university, he began working at Caterpillar in 1977 as a manufacturing process engineer, and during the 1980s implemented a number of computer technologies to improve manufacturing efficiencies, including CNC machines, CAD and CAM workstations, a factory network, and computerized product testing. This was an exciting time of new, affordable computer technologies, allowing for what had been a traditional smokestack industry to begin transitioning to automated and high tech. In 1991, he moved to Connaught Labs in North York as a project manager in the Information Solutions Department, supporting infrastructure projects for key business initiatives. He worked on a diverse number of systems technology projects supporting bioinformatics, research and development,
Vigilance.
pharmacovigilance, and regulatory affairs. I think we need a little bit more of that for AI. He had his first sailing experience in 1992 while in the Caribbean cruise, and had the opportunity to sail on an America's Cup sailboat, Canada 2. He and his wife Marlene joined the Cruising Club in 2004 and purchased their first sailboat, a CS-30. They began cruising Lake Ontario. In 2008, he joined the race club committee, the club race committee as crew, and began helping out on Wednesday night club racing, learning how to manage club racing. He completed Ontario Sailing's race officer club judge courses and also serves as Medico's PHRF representative. And that's what he's going to be talking about in a few minutes. From 2015 to 2017, he served as a Medico's fleet captain in charge of club racing. In 2018, he served on the planning committee that organized and executed Sail Canada's Ladies Keelboat Championships event in September of that year. In 2022, the race to Kingston began with its inaugural year. Wayne was part of that team and has served on the RGK Executive Committee through to 2024. He continues to serve on Medico's Race Committee Executive, helping to organize and run Medico's club racing program. And I have very high words for Wayne. I have worked with him on that race committee for a number of years now, and total trust in what he does for him. So thank you, Wayne, and let's just give him a nice show back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And we'll get started. We'll talk about PHRF today. Just before we get rolling, this was a graphic that I believe my brother-in-law sent me a picture, and I thought it was really sharp. We might be getting old, but the ones that still work with boats are the cool ones. So there we go. So anyway, let's go on here, and we'll talk about PHRF, as we call it. This is the acronym of PHRF. And what does it mean? There we go. So PHRF, Performance Handicap Racing Fleet. And this allows us, what does PHRF really do? I just, okay. Okay. PHRF. What is it? Because the average person on the street really wouldn't know. But what it does is it's a handicapping system used predominantly in North America to allow different types of sailboats to race against each other on a relatively level playing field. That's the purpose of what it is. It's widely used in North America. So it allows us to race boats like this here, this Veneto First 10R, against other boats such as this Swan 47. So, it allows a diverse group of boats to race together on that level playing field. So, a little bit about PHRF, the organization. And it's not really one big organization at the top. There's no head office, so to speak. It's basically a group of regional chapters, 21 in total currently. And as Graham mentioned earlier, he says there's no such thing as PHRF, there's a bunch of PHRFs. So think of it that way. It's kind of like a group of organizations spread around the continent. And this is the other interesting thing is a PHRF rating in one chapter is not necessarily the same as the PHRF rating in another chapter. Why would that be? Well, different chapters, different conditions, weather conditions, different water. What I mean by different water, fresh water versus salt water. Boats go a little higher in salt water. Salt water's heavy. That's all.
That's why you feel.
That's why you float better in the ocean than you do in fresh water. Anyway, so there, that's the reason why. And the other thing is each chapter, from the point of view of organization, may be divided into districts to kind of spread things out a bit. Not all of them will be. So, per chapters. Well, currently, these are the chapters in North America. And down at the bottom in that yellow orange color is, of course, of Lake Ontario chapter. But there's quite a wide ranging group of chapters. There's one in Lake Erie, there's New England, there's down in Nova Scotia, San Diego, California. They're spread out all over the place. Southeast Florida, Lake Michigan, really spread out all over the continent.
Narragansett Bay, there's that.
I honestly don't know. That caught my eye too. And I don't know where that one is. So, is it New England? Okay, thanks, Ron. Okay, now, along with these North American chapters, there's one international chapter in New Zealand.
Wow, so that's the 20.
There's the 21. So there you go. Okay, so where did PHRF start? Well, it's loosely based on an organization referred to as the Arbitrary Fleet of the West Coast, dating back to the 1940s. And PHRF emerged in the early 80s as an empirically based handicapping system that sailors easier access to handicap than afforded by measurement rules. And kind of what I mean by the measurement rules, and what I understand measurement rules well to is PHRF basically takes, for example, the design rating book, whereas another rating system would physically weigh the boat. So that's one of the things, the cost of weighing a boat is pretty expensive. That's one example of what it is.
So the design weight is.
The design weight is what the manufacturer says it is. Okay. So if you go on the internet and look up a Catalina 320, Mark 1 thing keel, you'll find that Catalina said it's supposed to be 11,700 pounds. Now, every time our boat gets picked up with haul out, granted there's more equipment on it than a stock boat, and the tanks are full, it comes in at nearly 13,000 pounds. So that's a good example. So other rating systems, well, this is one here, and this is one that we hear about fairly frequently, and this is called ORC, or Offshore Racing Compass, and it's a rating system for sailboat racing. It uses the boat's physical measurements and a velocity prediction program to calculate theoretical speed potential in different conditions. So it's not one size fits all. It's kind of variable depending on what kind of race you're in. So new certificate cost for this, I looked it up on the web, $200+. I think that's what I saw. I haven't seen anything submitted. Other than that, there's quite a group of people at ORC certificate holders And they're very passionate about this this rating system. Other rating systems, well, there's an older one known as IRC, International Race Certificate, and it's a system of handicapping sailboats and yachts for the purpose of racing. It's managed by Royal Ocean Racing Club in the UK, and through their dedicated rating office and the Union Nationale pour l'Arche in France. So this one here, years ago, this one here was something that we heard about over this way. And I remember Chris Bovick, he said, he says, I'm going to get out of IRC. He says, $600 a year for a certificate. He's getting a little pricey. So again, another alternate system. This one, again, I know this particular rating system, they did pick up boats and got weights, specific weights on each boat. So what else have we got? Well, over in the UK, my friend Julian, he uses this system here. It's the Royal Yachting Association National Handicap Cruisers, and it's widely used there. The original handicaps in this organization actually date back to the 1870s. So this thing about racing sailboats has been going on for quite some time. And the annual cost of this certificate is probably the best one I've seen yet. You just go on the lead and get your number. What else is? Well, here's another one, Portsmouth Yardstick. This one's really it's over in the UK as well, and it's specifically for dinghy racing.
But near the Isle of Wight,
Near the Isle of Wight, is it,
Yes.
Michael? Okay,
where they have 6 times.
6 times. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So what else do we have? Other operating systems. Well, there's a pile of homegrown operating systems, and I've got even the club I belong to, the Cruising Club, up until about 2012, we had our own rating system for boats. We even had our own scoring system. We had one guy who's pretty savvy and he wrote a scoring program, not near as nice as Sailway is today. So there's lots of that. I'm sure we're not the only ones who did it. I'm sure there's lots of them still in place. In fact, I know of a friend up in the Barrie area, and they are using homegrown rating systems. So prior to PERF going online, PERF used to use a spreadsheet to calculate PERF ratings for boats. And unfortunately, this spreadsheet got handed around, and a lot of people got a hold of it and started deriving ratings from it without paying the fee for the rating. In fact, some of them had a lot of nerve. They actually contacted PERF Lake Ontario and complained about inadequacies in the sheet, and they weren't even members of the PERF organization. I thought that was pretty bold. So what else are we? Okay, so here we are, PERF Lake Ontario. This is the logo, the verge that they have, and you'll notice there was a Canadian maple leaf and a star. And what I'm trying to get across here is it's PERF Lake Ontario. It covers both sides of the lake, the Canadian side and the American side.
You know, a single star on a flag is a signal flag.
Yeah. What else? PERF Lake Ontario background. Well, going back to the late 70s, there were a dozen yacht clubs along the south shore of Lake Ontario that gathered to discuss the idea of wide area PERF ratings to facilitate their inter-club racing. And this was the foundation of PERF Lake Ontario. And PERF Lake Ontario today is now the largest PERF chapter in the entire PERF family. It represents 61 yacht clubs around the lake, as far east as the Ottawa Valley, and as far north as Lake Simcoe and Georgian Bay. And they issue approximately 1,600 certificates annually. And the cost of PERF certificates is $50 a year. So, every year you have to, when you renew your certificate, it costs you $50 every year. So, and as the PERF president of Perth Lake, Ontario says, hey guys, it's basically a case of beer. Okay, so what does the organization look like? Well, you've got a group of handicappers over there on either side, and they are representing the clubs. And then within that, there's districts. Toronto East, Toronto West, Eastern District, Golden Horseshoe, and Rochester. And they make up Perth Lake, Ontario. At the top, you've got an executive, which includes a president, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, and a chief handicapper, and a couple of assistant handicappers. On the far right, you see administration. Those are the only paid employees in the Perth organization. Two ladies who kind of keep everything straight, and I believe they're part-time employees.
You fit.
Where do I fit in there? I'm one of the handicappers. I'm one of the guys in the colored sweaters. So in the middle there, you see central council. Central council is made up of the leads of all these districts. So each district has a head, a chief handicapper, and he's a member of central council. So at least there's five for sure that are on central council, and usually a couple more. And then there's also a technical committee that looks at new projects, such as they did a study on keels and things like that. They're looking at other things such as code zero sales, things like that. So there's a technical committee that looks at ways to change or improve or add more to it. And if you wonder, in this area right here, National Yacht Club, National is part of the Toronto West District. If you're west of Yonge Street and as far over as Port Credit, you're in the Toronto West District. If you're east of Yonge Street, over to Coburg, you're part of the Toronto East District. What else? Okay, here's another thing about Perth, Toronto West District. Here's all the clubs that belong in the Toronto West District. So you've got Alexandria Yacht Club next door to this club, Boulevard Club, Soberco Yacht Club, Lakeshore Yacht Club, Liverpool Cruising Club, my club, National Yacht Club, where we are meeting today, Port Credit Yacht Club, Queen City Yacht Club, Royal Canadian Yacht Club, and Toronto Sailing and Canoe Club. That's what makes up Toronto West. What else? Okay. So club handicappers make up the bulk of the volunteers. And each club has a minimum of one, possibly as many as two. Raymond and myself are two such handicappers. Queen City Yacht Club, where Raymond represents, and Liverpool Cruising Club developers. And to kind of keep us in line and up to date with the first moving, they have an annual training day at the start of the season to keep us up to date with changes, refinements to the way ratings are applied. And here's a shot of one of these training days. What they're doing in this particular shot is they're teaching people how to measure sails. Sail on the ground from what appears to be a laser, and you're doing sail measure. So what does a club handicapper do? Well, the easy one is renewing club certificates every year. And that's basically logging into the Perth website and checking off the box and looking renew. Here's the one that we probably spend most of our time doing. Measuring sales, editing and updating existing certificates, and creating new certificates. So all of this is now done online. And another thing we do is proposing new ratings for boats that aren't already in the coach system. So if somebody comes in with a brand new boat that isn't already in the system, we don't have any data on, we've got to try to analyze that boat and come up with a rating. So the last thing is attending district meetings to review ratings, appeals, and vote on new proposed ratings. And we used to always meet face to face, but with Zoom now, we're pretty much doing it all online. So we get more attendance doing it online. So what's required? So we want to create a new certificate. So first off, we need to figure out what the class of the boat is. And what I mean by that, what's the make and the model of the boat? We need sail measurements. We need to have measurements on the name, the jib, or the genoa. If there's a spinnaker, spinnakers involved, we need to have the measurements from those. Sometimes we stretch them out on the front lawn of the club and get out there with a long tape measure and physically measure them. Other times, I'm quite happy to accept the sailmaker certificate, a current sailmaker certificate on the sail. Spinnaker pole. Is it pole? Is it an articulating pole attached to the front of the mast, or is it a bowsprit? Viper propeller. What does it have? 2 or 3 blades, fixed, feathering, or folded. So those are the kind of things we need, information we need to analyze what we're going to do. So the class of the boat, again, make and model, configuration of the boat. And I'm using our boat. And our boat's a Catalina 320 Mark 1 with a wing keel. That's what we mean by class of boat. And in the past 45 years, PHRF has accumulated a sizable catalog of boats and data and has base ratings for these boats. So we don't have to really go back from scratch. If the boat's widely sailed in Lake Ontario, chances are we already have the information on it. We just need to measure the sails and program in what the configuration of the boat is to get a rating. So class of boat data includes hull dimensions, length overall, waterline length, the beam of the boat, the depth of the boat, what kind of keel does it have? Is it a wing keel, main keel, or a shoal? Is it a shoal style keel? Rig dimensions. You see these funny alphabet letters here. Well, what do they mean? Well, I'll show you on another slide. This refers to the actual dimensions on the rig of the boat. And the last, the design displacement for weight of the boat. So, rig dimensions. I talked about those letters from the alphabet. What do they mean? Well, the first one is maximum main foot. And you see, I just underlined the E on that diagram. The P is the maximum main hoist height up the mast. The I is the maximum jib hoist. The J is the forestay base length, and that's from the end of from forestay, the base of the forestay back to the front of the mast. ISP and JSP are basically the same as I and J, but they're in regards to the spinnaker. So ISP is the maximum spinnaker hoist, and JSP is the maximum spinnaker base length, again measured from the front of the mast to the end of the spinnaker pole or the bowsprit. So sail measurements, and again, sometimes we'll stretch these sails out on the lawn and take these measurements, and other times I'm quite happy to accept sail maker certificate. So it's just having to go through the process of measure. So if we do measure, we want to know what the width at the top of the sail is, what we call the head width. Then we want to go 7/8, take 7/8 from the flue back up. We want to measure the top girth. And then 3/4 of the way up, we measure the main girth. For the main girth upper, and then finally the main girth middle. Now you'll notice we don't measure anything below that. We don't measure the foot of the sail, and we don't measure the luff on the sail. Sail measurements. Now, here's a couple of main sails on the floor here, one of these training sessions. So why is sail measurement so important? Well, here's a situation where this particular sail actually could be put on the same boat. But if you didn't measure it correctly or didn't take measurements at all, the larger sail would have quite a bit of an advantage being larger, certainly in light wind conditions. So, again, genoa. We're going to measure what we call the luff perpendicular there at the bottom from the tube over to the luff. And we're going to measure the half height from the half height of the sail across, again, the girth measurement. We don't measure the luff length, we don't measure the foot on the sail. So calculating sail area. With both rig dimensions and sail girth dimensions, the sail area, you calculate. And here's the thing that's where it gets a bit interesting. Earth assumes you have sails that fit your boat. This is why we don't measure the length of the foot on one of the sails. I'm going to use an example here. And this is a boat. Diane, you may be familiar with this boat. Look at the top. Look at the boat on the right. The mainsail goes all the way up the mast. The blue boat, the sail doesn't go up to the top of the mast. I'll go a little closer on that. He's 18 inches, almost 2 feet below the upper hoist point on this boat. These sails do not fit this boat properly. Now, I've measured this sails a couple of times. I've looked them over. And these are bargain basement sails made in China. They even have a tag on them that says made in China. Well, you got these sails made, for whatever reason, they didn't make them large enough. And it doesn't matter the girth, we are not going to measure the rough with a foot. We measure the girth on it, and he's missing out on quite a bit of sail area because of this. So again, calculating sail area. Calculations are based on the 4 triangle area. Here we have a main again over there. So we look at this and we go, well, when we take the girth measurements and work them in, 100% would be from the top of the hoist point down to the back of the boat, the triangle. Well, depending on how much girth there is, you can wind up with more than 100% or less than 100%. So if you're within that range of 98.1 to 102, that's what they expect the sail to be. It's basically 100%. If it's less than that, they start giving you credits because the sail is smaller. If it's more than that, they start taking time away from it, or negative credits. So as we go further along here, you'll see that the desire is to get as many pluses and as few minuses as possible. Same thing with a genoa or a jib. Same idea, 4 triangle area calculation. So 150 to 150.1 to 155 is considered a normal sail. In fact, it's a number 3. We often call sails number 1, a number 2, or number 3. A number 1 being 100%, a number 2 being approximately 130 to 135, and a number 3 that's up to 155%. Some people have even got bigger sails than that. They come way back along the deck through the fairway cars. Some of them are almost back to the cockpit. So again, if you're in that 150.1 to 155, that's what they expect the sail size to be. No credit, plus or minus. But if you're below 150.1, you start getting credits. If you're above, you start losing credits. So, those are those two. Again, I've done this on the front lawn. I've also read the stuff out of Sailmakers. On symmetrical spinnakers, there's 3 measurements we go after. The luff, the foot, and the mid girth. Now, we don't measure the leach on this thing because it's symmetrical. Often the leach really should be the same. But on an asymmetrical sail, this one requires 4 dimensions. And we measure the luff. We measure the leach. We measure the foot. And we measure the mid girth. With that and the rig dimensions, again, we can calculate how this sail comes up. Now, on spinnakers, the bar is set up even higher. On a normal spinnaker for a boat should be 175.1 to 180%. And again, if you've got that size, there's no credit. But if you're below 175.1 or above 180, you get either a plus or a minus. spinnaker pole and rig. So what do you got? Have you got an articulating spinnaker pole that attaches to the mast? Ideally, it should extend to the end of the forestay. If it goes past that, well, that's going to cost you something. And again, negative credits. Or do you have a bowsprit on the boat? And this generally results in a plus adjustment, even though it could be quite long. But it's related to a ratio of displacement to sail area. And why do you get a plus on this? Well, this isn't as versatile as an articulating spinnaker pole. This is fixed. You can't do anything with it. An articulating spinnaker pole, you can move it from side to side quite a bit. You can do a lot more reaching with it. That's wrong. So what else do we look at? Propellers. Well, is it fixed props, 2 and 3 bladed? Or is it feathering or folding? Well, if you've got fixed props, if you got 2 blades, you automatically get a 12-second credit. If you got 3 blades, that's even more drag. They give you a 15-second credit. If you've got a feathering or a folding prop, and that's the difference, the one on the left is feathering, the one on the right is a folding. There's basically much less reduced drag, so it zeroes out. There's no credit for it. Now, well, you've managed to capture all this information. You've identified the boat. You've got sail measurements for all the sails. You've identified that this boat has got a bowsprit, and you've measured the length of it. You've got also looked at the propeller. It's a 2-bladed folding prop. So you've got all this data. So now what do you do? Well, if you're a handicapper, you go to this website and you log in as the handicapper and you go to create a new worksheet. And you fill in the owner's information, who he is, his address, phone numbers, all that great stuff, the class of boat, all the info. And then you take all that racing and sales info that you collected and you input it. And you click validate to make sure that you haven't missed anything. And then finally, when you're happy with everything, you double check everything, you click create a certificate transaction. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, a PHRF certificate appears out on the web for this boat. So, and this is what a PHRF certificate looks like. On the right-hand side there. We'll zero in a little bit more so we can see a bit more information on this. So just before we get to that, this is what a landing school 30 looks like. A little sport boat. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty fast. Interesting configuration. So let's look at this fellow's certificate. This is a fellow by the name of Stephen Ball. And he's at Tobago. Yacht Club. We both pulled that against him. And his boat name is Wahoo. He's got number 1 on his sail for his sail number. And there it is, that landing school 30 is the type of boat. It's the make and model that we built. So when we put that in, that's all we input PHRF system. We get rig information and hull information that's already in the PHRF system. We don't have to do anything. So all we need to do is fill in the rest of the information, such as the mainsail information that we collected, and then the head sail, the jib information that we collected. And we identified that it's an asymmetrical spinnaker. So we plug in those 4 dimensions. And lastly, we've got the spinnaker pole. And in this case, it's a bowsprit. It's what's called, instead of an articulating tack point, such as the spinnaker pole, this has got a bowsprit which is fixed. So it becomes what's called a centered tack. So another look at this boat. It's a great little sport boat, 30 feet, fractional rig, big mainsail with a flat top, headboard, and a rather small jib. That would probably be a little more than 100% that size jib in relationship to how it falls, and is shown just around the back, ending right at the start of the mast. So let's go into further down on this spreadsheet, let's see what we got. So to start with, we're going to get a rating for both flying sail and non-flying sail. And there's the base ratings for have in their system already. So without any adjustments, this boat comes out at 93 and 114, 93 for flying sail and 114 for white sail. But there's adjustments. So remember, we measured some things. So let's look at this. Remember that mainsail, how big it was? Well, it actually comes in at quite a bit more than 100%. Comes in 117.8%. And what that results in is a 6-second penalty in both areas, both for flying sail and for white sail. On the other hand, he's got a small head sail, a small jib. It's basically, I said, around about 100%, it's 101.3. So he's getting a credit for that because it's small. A regular size head sail, they'd anticipate to be about 150%. So he gets a 10-second credit in flying sail, but look at what he gets over in white sail. He gets 10 seconds on upwind, he gets 10 seconds downwind, both directions. So that was pretty interesting. What else have we got? Well, it's a spinnaker. We got the measurements for that. And that all got calculated out at 150%. Well, remember, spinnakers are 175.1 to 180 is 0. This is quite a bit smaller than that 175.1. So he's getting a 5-second credit there. And then the last thing, the second last thing, is he's got a bow split. So he's got that center line point. And I said that there was a credit that you ought to get with that. Well, he's picking up 3 seconds on that. And it's again, that credit is based on a ratio of sail area to displacement to determine what that's going to be. It used to be 6 seconds across the board for everybody. Now it's graduated depending on the ratio. So last but not least, he's got a feathering prop, a folding prop on that boat, and he gets nothing for them. So where are we with all of this? When we add all of this up, we get what's called adjusted speed potential. And under flying sail, his perf number is 105. Under white sail, his perf number is 128. Now that we have a perf rate, what do we do with it? Well, the perf number is used in race scoring programs such as Sail Wave, Quick Score, and Yacht Scoring, and others. And rate scoring programs take your elapsed time and adjust it based on your perf rating. So if you got a bunch of boats that all finish at the same time, but they have different perf ratings, they won't be finishing at the same time on the final result. This becomes known as corrected time. And here's an example of a score sheet, a sail wave score sheet. And right there in that column, you've got all the perf ratings for all those boats. And then over here, you see the elapsed time, the physical time that these boats finish the race in. And then we apply the perf rating, and that time changes to corrected time. And that orders who finished first, second, third, fourth, etc. And that boat that we did the certificate on, Wahoo, is down here at the bottom. And he joined us this year, racing this year with us. I think, in all fairness to Stephen, I think this boat's fairly new to him. He still hasn't learned enough about the boat because he hasn't done very well with it yet. I think this boat has a lot of potential, but he's still got to get more comfortable with that. So corrected time. So depending on the perf rating, add or subtract from your elapsed time. And Wednesday Night Club Racing uses what's called a time-on-time formula, primary formula. And if your perf rating is less than 165, you get time added to your elapsed time. So if you're finishing 5 minutes, your corrected time is going to be more than 5 minutes. Perf ratings greater than 165, you get a subtraction from your elapsed time. A 5-minute elapsed time will be will be for something, 4 minutes of something as an example. So our truths about PHRF. PHRF is a handicapping system for the equipment, i.e. the boat. Not the skill level, but the skill and crew. So it's a handicap for the boat. It's not like a golf handicap where you handicap the player. PHRF assumes that all your equipment is in excellent working condition. They really make no allowance for things that aren't things that aren't in first-rate condition. And I use this example here: 30-year worn-out deck on sails versus new carbon fiber sails. There's no allowance in the system for that. We measure your sails. Sails are sails are sails. They're all the same. PHRF ratings can be appealed. So if you're not happy with your PHRF rating, you can complain. You can fill out a form and appeal it. But you need to provide some good data to justify why you're appealing it. And we've got a few people that do this, not too many. We've got a few people every year that say, I want to appeal my rating. Well, this last thing here, IMHO. In my humble opinion, doesn't amount to much. Okay. And I've got people that say, well, I don't believe, I think that rating's unfair. It's my opinion. Guess what? You won't get very far with PHRF on this at all. They'll pretty much dismiss you right away. So when I say about extensive race data, they want to see physical data. They don't want to see it from one club's race results. They want to see data from all over the lake before they'll even consider it. So getting a subset of one club's race data and using that as your argument doesn't work too well either. So they want to, in fact, they want to see multiple boats. They don't want to just see one boat. They want to see, there's an appeal on Veneto 10Rs right now. But all the guy's really done is he's given us data from Mimico's racing program. He's not looked at the other 4 10Rs that are out on the lake, and he hasn't got data from any of those races that they participated. So again, they're looking for broad information to make different terrain changes. So per future. All right. So where does all this go? Well, PHRF ratings are reviewed and adjusted annually based on analyzed race data. This is what I was talking about, gathering race data and analyzing. And clubs actually get a financial benefit if they send their race data back. So that's what most clubs do. In fact, we did, I think it's a $5 credit right now. Well, so that's one thing about how ratings get adjusted and improved. The other thing is PHRF takes on studies to improve existing models with more accuracy. And I use another example here. This was a project done a few years ago where they really did an extensive study on keels, shape of keels, how much drag they projected they would have, things like that. And as a result, they've incorporated this into the rating. So every now and then you'll see, you'll go to renew a certificate and you'll notice, well, geez, that rating's changed by a couple of seconds this year. It used to have a number like it used to be a number of 64. Now it's down to 62. What happened there? Well, this could have been it. Yeah, is perfect? No, but it continues to evolve and improve with the above activities. So I think that's a good thing. Is it's a constant feedback loop. It's not static. There is an ongoing desire to make it more and more accurate. So I always like to Diane put this out and said I was cool. So keep calm and get a certificate. So anyway, okay, I got we're a little bit ahead of time. If that's okay, I can go with a few more slides. All right, so what I've done so far is I've talked about boats that are already in the system, getting the sail data, getting the boat configuration data, getting a rating and producing a certificate. What happens if we got a boat, someone brings a boat onto the lake, they want to get a birth certificate for it. It's not in the birth catalog. It doesn't exist. Well, it's referred to as an initial assignment. And this is another job that the handicappers get to do. So we're lucky, PHRF handicappers have this wonderful comparison tool that allows them to find existing boats that most closely match the new boat with physical dimensions, rig dimension, displacement, sail area to displacement ratio, sail area to waterline length, etc. Okay, so all of that great stuff we were able to dig out of PHRF. We didn't have to go get it. So here's a boat that we got this year at Nemico Cruising Club. It's a CNC 30 one design. So CNC 30, that's a very popular boat from the 70s. They built a lot of them. A lot of them still racing today. They're tough as nails. This is a new model, and it's basically a sport boat because it's very lightweight. Here's another shot of it. Pretty cool looking boat, 30 feet, lovely design. So we got to come up with a new rating for this boat. We have nothing that we know of right now. So to start with, we identify what the boat is, and that is, and it's a CNC 30, one design. It's got a carbon fiber mast. Okay, and because of the nature of the boat, we decided to make it a sport boat, and that dash SB at the end refers to sport boat. And then all that great information, those I's, those J's, those E's, P's, etc. We used to have all of those. Well, we got to get those and input them into the first system. We've got to provide that information. Sometimes you go and physically measure, usually not. Most times you can get this information off the web or from the manufacturer of the boat. So with all of that information put into this initial assignment form, we can start doing things. So here's this comparison tool. So all of this has been populated. All of this has been populated up along this top line here. All that information. So we said, well, what does it compare to? We click a button for comparison, and these two boats pop up. They're already in the PHRF system. And the real neat thing about this is we can look column by column, figure out is the dimension shorter or longer or lighter or faster or slower. We get an idea where we are with this. We can get a percent difference of what each dimension is, and if you come up with some. So it also shows the PHRF ratings of these boats. There's for the Henderson, it's 54. For the SB 32, it's 84. So looking at all of this and making a comparison, we made a decision to tag on this sport boat with a flag sail rating of 51. This is the base rating of the boat. So no sail date has been put in yet. This is strictly the base rating. That's what we're going to propose. So as a handicapper, that's what I did. I proposed 51 as the best approximation for this new boat. Now, it's an approximation. It's kind of it's our best guess. It's an intelligent guess. But what if we're wrong? We don't want this brand new boat running away with a pile of races because we underestimated how fast it was going to be. So we put in this thing here. New yacht adjustment, PTF, protect the fleet. So he gets a 6-second penalty because he's new. And he gets that penalty for at least 2 years until we can gather some race data on this, and then we might take it off. Or we might adjust his rating otherwise. Well, that's the starting point. And so his starting rating goes from 51 down to 45, and that's without sail dimensions. That's the total rating, the base rating. What else we got? Okay. So this initial rating, as I said, is proposed by the handicapper, myself, at Nemico Cruising Club, but could be any handicapper. Graham could do this over QCYC for one of his boats. It's then reviewed and voted on by other district handicappers. So we'll get together, district handicappers, Toronto West, and we'll vote on it. And if we agree with it, we're all in agreement, we might even adjust it at that meeting. We might say, I think you're being a bit too generous, Wayne. Maybe we ought to shave a few more seconds off that to get started. We don't want this getting away from us. We could do that. It'll be a discussion and an agreement. And in the end, we vote on it and it moves on to the next level, which is central council. And they review our results. And if they don't see anything really striking with it, it becomes law. So it starts here with a handicapper. It moves to the district. And then finally approval by the central council. And then it goes on, it becomes a legitimate certificate. So that's how the whole process is done. And a lot of numbers, a lot of technical stuff, but I'm open to questions. Rob?
Seems like a basic question. The boats will have more than one foresail. Sounds like you're measuring one sail.
Yeah. Very good question. Okay, boats could have more than one foresail. That's correct. All right. The foresail that we pick to measure is going to be the largest sail that owner intends to use in a race. So if you put a number 3 sail on, we measure that. You can use a number 2. You can use a number 1. You can use something smaller, but you can't use something bigger. So very good question. Thanks.
I missed the bottom line of how does the rating determine seconds adjustment in a race?
Okay, so it's like a factor. So it's a multiplication factor, and it takes the elapsed time of the race and it adjusts it based on that factor. So that rating that you saw, that list of ratings, that is the actual multiplication factor, so to speak, that determines the corrected time. The corrected time is what counts, first, second, third.
So a faster boat has a higher rating or lower rating?
The faster boat has got a lower rating. Slower boat has a higher rating. Okay.
Numerically speaking.
Yeah, numerically speaking. So a really fast sport boat. We've got some 130s that are down around 15. Was a perf number. I'll give you another example. Years ago, Derek Hadfield's boat that he did the Bondi ocean race in. Okay. We had to rate that boat because they wanted to run it in the 300. So they got turned to 300. I remember getting together in the district meeting to decide that. Believe it or not, we actually gave it a negative number as a rating. So you can go below 0 and be into negative numbers because that thing is so darn fast. They figured that their biggest fear was he'd get into that race, they'd have a storm and he'd take off like crazy because a boat like that would perform well in the storm.
The smaller number is faster.
Yes, smaller number is faster.
The second question I have is a wicked question. Having spent years modeling neurons theoretically, and my old collaborator, Harold Atwood, would say, what does the data show? So the question is,
Yep.
how good is this complicated system versus the data? And does it need to be this complicated?
Well, I think it probably started out a whole lot simpler than it is now. But as time goes on and it's evolved and technology's changed and equipment has changed, it's evolved to this. So how good is it? Well, I think it continues to improve every year. I truly do. Again, because of feedback of race data into the system, analyzing that race data, adjusting the ratings based on that race data on those boats, and also the projects they take on, like the keel study, etc. I do think it improves. Graham.
But whether it needs to be this complicated, the other systems that people go to are more complicated because sailboat racing is very complicated.
That's really true. This is actually one of the more simpler systems. It really is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. IRC and ORC, that's far more complicated.
How small a boat do you go down to?
We've got sport boats, we've got stuff under 30 feet.
Where you go down to, is laser in the system?
No, laser's not a keel boat.
Okay,
Okay,
that's because
it's, yeah, okay,
there are systems where, well,
yeah,
in the fifties, my father sailed national. And we got that country in a cutaway,
Yeah.
right by the Handicap.
yeah. Just, I'll get to you, Sherry, don't worry. Lasers are not classified as keel boats, okay? That's one thing. And the second thing is, things like lasers and boats of that nature, they tend to race in what's called one design. And what I mean by one design is, we don't worry about a rating, you're all racing, you're racing against other lasers. So it's a level playing field because they're all the same.
Yeah, like perfect assumes that you have it in.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So there's things like that,
Yeah,
but
but-
that's a good point.
But in England, they had a handicap race that every boat in the club was in town. So,
Sherry,
Yeah, I was just curious. If people aren't racing, then, but they buy a boat just to go cruising, do they bother with perf?
generally, no, you really want one, you want one if you're gonna race. For example, if you want to get into the Lake Ontario 300, or if you want to participate in
Yeah.
club racing, most of the NLRs, the notice of races, state that you must have a valid birth certificate to enter. You can't enter without one. So you're not, it's not any benefit if you're not racing. Some people will go and look up the rating. I've done it for our boat. I don't race the R320. But I've looked up the rating. I've gone through the process of measuring the sails and gone through the whole thing just to see what I come out at. But I've done that just on a personal interest point of view. And if someone came to me and said, could you tell me what my boat would rate at? I'll do that for them. But, it's just more or less to,
But I know some people at this club, wonderful people and great boats,
Yeah.
and they would go out strictly cruising. So,
yeah, so that's it.
So
So,
racing, of course.
yeah, occasionally what we'll do is, I will say this, we have one race every year over at Memberfald called the Around the March race, or the Around the Cans race at the end of the season. It's kind of like something to do with it's a Sunday afternoon race. It's around the cans. And we try to encourage people that don't normally race. Racers are welcome to, but we try to encourage people that don't normally race their boats to go out and run them around the cans. And what we do is we approximate a perf rating for them without going through all the sail measurement. We kind of eye the boat up, we look to see what other boats of that class rate at, and we try to give them an approximate rating to give them something to do. And that's
So one class boats, like if you had a data for, 320s,
yes.
it wouldn't be important to have a play.
If you all have the same sails, and you all have the same configuration of the boat, they all have wing keels, then that would be great. Okay,
You might think about the shark regattas.
sharks are very specific.
Right, so they're not dangerous.
They're very much like dinghies, although they are keel boats. So, and you can get a rating for a shark. It's,
If you
if you want to race, if you want, perf ratings for sharks are quite common. But most people are racing sharks in the one design. I'll give you another one, Bill Devon and Hugh Borgendog that have the J105s that are across the dock from us at the club. They participate in a ton of one design races against other J105s. There's a big group. There's another group, the Veneto 367s. There's another group there, and they do class racing as well. What I mean by class racing is one design. They all have the same configuration, and they're not worrying about perfs. They're just playing on a level field. Sure.
Yeah, this is a big racing club. In fact, for 4 years, as well as racing, with friends, we did race committee. And on the race committee boat, I never remember anybody talking about perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly would have been done for.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You've got a big, this is a big racing powerhouse here over here at National.
Oh, it's a big racing.
Oh, yeah, you guys have a big racing fleet and you guys are super active.
Yeah, it was 3 nights a week.
Yeah, you guys are heavy duty. So you're definitely using first and,
Are there any comments or questions from the people on the ground?
So,
You mentioned sharks.
Yeah.
Pardon me, color does a shark now, and you can.
It's totally retractable out. So that's the thing. So there is a category in the perf rating that allows you to retract the outboard. Some of them, they tilt up on sharks. The Henderson 30, you raise the outboard up and there's a little door that closes underneath.
Yeah, I think time.
Yeah, so there's other things like that.
Okay, you just had to describe.
I didn't get into that level there, but those are some of the selections you can make.
So then the second question is, do those numbers correspond to seconds?
Yeah, it's pretty much, they're considered, seconds per nautical.
Or not?
Yeah, and I don't
Because
know.
You said that it was time on time.
Well, we do a time on time, use a time on time formula. So we're not doing time on distance, we're doing time on time, as most clubs are doing. Time on time is a bit of a complex formula, and there's some great reading on the PHRF website that anybody can go to and try to get an understanding of it. Time on time is a formula and it's put in place specifically for diminishing wind conditions. What do we have on evening races? The sun is going down, the temperature's dropping, and the winds are fading. And that's part of the reason why time on time is used. There's a couple of different formulas for time on time, but the one we use is what we call the primary formula. A couple of factors in there that make that adjustment for those diminishing conditions. But you're right, the actual physical number, the actual number you see is really a time on distance number. And it's altered in the scoring program like sail wave, etc. to do the time on time. Jim?
I'm so amazed by this rating system. I wrestled high school, college, and Olympic style with the weight classes. And I was wondering what other sport there's a rating system. And I think horse racing, they'll add weight. But I can't think of any other sports that have the rating system.
Yeah.
And we was wondering, like, gymnastics for body type and styles and things, that would be an interesting place.
Good
And
point.
being our evolutionist,
Yeah.
I find this phenomenon really
The
interesting.
only other thing I could correlate to this is we're gonna kind of drift over to kind of a one design scenario. Is that car racing, for example, formula racing, those cars have very specific parameters. They all have to fall within that to compete. And the idea is to level that field, but effectively it's like one design racing. All the J105s going up against each other, all the Beneteau 367s racing together, all the sharks racing. It's that sort of form. So this allows, the idea of perfect allows a real diverse group of boats to compete against each other on a relatively level playing field. You know, that those two boats I showed at the beginning, the Beneteau 10R and that Swan 47, well, there's no getting around it. In a lapse time, that Beneteau 10R is going to beat the pants of that Swan 47. He's going to cream him. And he's just a much faster boat. So this perf rating levels that out.
I was just laughing at thinking maybe we could apply it to politicians and ethics.
So you have this organizational structure and the various regions and so on. It sounds to me, well, first of all, like, you know, I mean, all of the Great Lakes, none of them are saltwater.
Yep.
Why would they have different regions? And secondarily, I guess, you have all of these regions, they seem to be doing a lot of work that might look like duplication.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you're right, you're down to exactly that. There is duplication because of a rating for, I found this out, friend of mine, Larry Sterling, he would go down to Florida and he got involved in the racing down there. He was near just south of Tampa. And he got on Catalina 320 and he raced with that guy. And he was amazed at the rating that the boat had. And he sent me an email asking me about it, and I did some research, and yes, sure enough, the rating's different. But you're in salt water, you're in different wind conditions, et cetera. And it is duplication because the additional, now I will say one thing, and that is, when we're looking at a new boat, as a district, in that district meeting, when we're analyzing my proposed rating, we will go out and say, well, what rating did Personal England give? So we will look at other perf chapters to get an idea to see that we're not too far off the mark. But there is duplication.
Is there any effort to coordinate?
I would say not.
The problem is that even if they're like in salt water, there's different wind strengths between like Northern California and Southern California. So it makes a big difference. So you can't have, because the different perfs are creating handicaps for their conditions. And the conditions change everything.
Good. Okay, Wayne, thank you so much. I think you made a very complex subject.
Yeah.
Very understandable. And not the least of which the way you used your slides. Underlining and everything. I think that was really, really helpful. I certainly will be looking at racing a little differently than I have looked at it before. So a small token of our appreciation, and let's give him a warm. It's awesome. We'll have you back.
All right, we'll find another topic.
We'll find
And we'll
another
do,
topic.
and we'll do this again. We'll see what.
Yeah. And
And by the way, Jim, you gave me the idea for this.